Hey guys, Soccer from Socky Tech, and in today's video what we're going to do is we are going to be comparing the cameras of the Google 6 Pro versus the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now the first part of this video is going to be the photos using all three cameras on these phones, the wide, the ultra wide, and the telephoto. And the second part is going to be the video footage comparison, such as video stabilization, video quality, and also the microphone quality of the microphones built into these phones. And part 3, we're going to focus on night photography. So let's dive in and start with part 1, photos. Alright, so the very first thing I want to talk about is going to be the macro shots. So the iPhone has a dedicated macro mode. The Pixel 6 Pro does not. So what we are going to do is we're going to try the 4x optical camera on the Pixel to see how close we can get and how much detail we can retain. So as you can see, the Pixel 6 Pro does a great job with 4x optical zoom, but the iPhone 13 Pro Max has got that dedicated macro mode. You can really get up close and personal to a subject, and you can see it right here. We have much more detail on the iPhone 13 Pro Max coin here. And if I zoom into the coins, you can see the proof in that. As you zoom in, iPhone 13 Pro Max retains more detail. You can read the text no problem, as I have cropped in almost 4 times. So for sure, the iPhone 13 takes better close-up shots. Here is another example. We're going to take this leaf, that's just a regular shot, and we're going to do a macro, and you can see the details much more clearly on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now let's move on and talk about the zooming capabilities and the zooming quality of both of these phones. Now the iPhone has the capability to do 3x optical zoom and 15x hybrid zoom. So it can go as far as 15. The Pixel has 4x optical zoom and 20x hybrid zoom, so it can go all the way up to 20. So we're going to compare the 15 and the 20 to see the clarity. Which one is a better zooming phone? So there you have it. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is not good when it comes to zooming, especially when you go past the 3x. So that's 15. It's dark and it's not clear. The Pixel 6 Pro is razor sharp at 20. Now let's look at some other samples. I did a bunch of these to make sure. Again, iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's blurry. It is not crisp. There's a lot of loss of quality. But with the Pixel, I can actually read part of that sign. And then finally, I did one more photo just to be 100% safe. So again, much more clear and much more detail on the Pixel 6 Pro. So the 6 Pro is the better phone to zoom. Now here's a regular shot of a rock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in 3x optically just to see how much both of these phones retain in quality. So you can see the iPhone 13 and the Pixel side by side. So in this case, you can see the iPhone actually retains more detail when it comes to 3x optical zoom. So when you go to digital zoom, the iPhone loses, but when you're at optical range, the iPhone seems to perform a little bit better. Here's a sample of portrait selfies for both the iPhone and the Pixel. I think they both look great. A little bit different, but then it's going to be a personal choice. Which one do you like better? And also, when you zoom into these photos, you can see both of these phones have great edge control. Very well smoothed out edges. Now, personally, in this instance, if I had to pick one of these photos, I would just go with the iPhone. Alright, so now let's just compare the regular cameras. Let's take a bunch of shots and see how they stack up against each other in the same exact lighting conditions. I'm going to go through a bunch of photos side by side and just give you a little bit commentary, but you can actually make your own decision by looking at these photos. So here's an iPhone photo. I'm gonna show you the larger version first so you can see the details, and then here's the Pixel photo. And I'll let you know, I was out there when I was taking these photos. The world actually looked more like what the iPhone 13 was representing, but it's a little bit duller than the Google Pro photos. However, the quality of these photos are very, very comparable. I really can't say if I was an average consumer that I would take one over the other because they both do a great job. And here's another one. They both look gorgeous. Let me give you a couple more side-by-side photos. And my observation is that even though the iPhone seems to be more color accurate, it also seems to be a little bit more dull. So it's not perfectly what the world looks like. It's even a little bit duller than the actual world. And the Pixel is slightly more colorful than the actual world. So again, quality-wise, they're the same, but choice is up to you. Now let's look at a bunch of ultra-wide shots. I'll let you know right away, the iPhone's ultra-wide is a little bit wider than the Pixel's wide, so it takes a little bit more in. And also the color differences in both of these photos become more apparent when you switch to the ultra-wide camera. Again, no doubt they're really high quality. In fact, the clouds in this picture on the Pixel look more accurate, but the colors on the iPhone are more balanced. But can anybody say that either one of these photos is bad? Probably not. Now here's another ultra-wide, and you'll see when I switch to the Google Pixel, you'll see that the iPhone's ultra-wide is a little bit wider. It takes in more of the photo. So that's a more important difference. And here is a final side-by-side ultra-wide. Now let's move on and talk about the video. First thing I want to take a look at is the stabilization. When you have the phone handheld, how is the stabilization as you walk? So let's see, side by side. All right, so this is going to be 1080p at 60 frames per second. And again, side by side, other than the color reproduction, the stabilization is excellent on both smartphones. I also want to show you guys a footage of me walking on a more uneven surface, both with the iPhone and the Pixel side by side. Let's see how that is doing. Now, although it is a little subtle, correct me if I'm wrong, but the iPhone is actually more smooth when it comes to stabilization here. With the Google Pixel 6 Pro, there is some slight vibration here and there where the iPhone smooths out any vibrations. So I think it is slightly better on the iPhone as far as stabilization is concerned. That doesn't mean the Pixel is bad. iPhone simply seems slightly more refined. Next up, I want to see what happens when I go from ultra wide to zoom as I'm recording a video. Let's see how the quality changes on each phone. All right, so first we're going to do the iPhone. So this is the ultra wide. I'm going to switch over to regular standard wide. Okay, nice, easy, smooth transition. Now I'm going to do 3 times optical. Again, nice transition. Now let's do the Pixel. So this is the ultra wide. I'm going to go to regular standard. Okay, so we got the transition. There was a little lag here. Let's do one more, 4 times. Okay, so not as smooth as the iPhone. Again, subtle difference, but you can catch it if you watch carefully. So transitioning from one lens to the other during recording, the iPhone is smoother. Next up, we're going to be looking at stabilization during 4K as I'm walking handheld. So again, I have to say, I'm walking on a straight surface. The stabilization is excellent on both phones at 4K at 30 frames per second. Now let's quickly check the microphone quality and how the microphone captures nature sounds as I record with these phones in this natural setting. So the iPhone first. And back at the office, here's the microphone quality to expect with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And also this happens to be the front-facing camera recording at 1080p at 60 frames per second. iPhone is also capable of recording at 4K at 30 frames per second using the front camera, and this is that. So we're doing 4K at 30 frames per second right now. All right, so this is the Pixel 6 Pro. Again, we are at 1080p at 60 frames per second using the front camera. And this is the voice quality, the microphone quality to expect from the Pixel 6 Pro. And of course, Pixel 6 Pro is also capable of recording 4K, and that's what you're looking at right now. This is 4K at 30 frames per second. Now, iPhone does have a cinematic mode that allows you to keep your face in focus, the background blurred out, and if you bring in another subject into the scene, it focuses on that subject, and then the background behind that subject blurs out. It's not that bad, but it's far from perfect. But I would say it's a usable mode for the average consumer and an enjoyable feature to have. I actually prefer Google's cinematic pan stabilization feature over this feature, which I think is much more usable. Look at these steady, smooth shots I'm able to take with the Google Pixel 6 Pro when I activate the cinematic pan stabilization mode. This I can actually use for some video production. Absolutely fantastic. Alright, so now let's move on and talk about some night mode photos. Now, night mode is not as consistent as the daytime photos, and that's understandable because there's some heavy processing involved here. So let's take a look at a bunch of photos side by side. Now, here's the first one, and the Pixel Pro in this case looks better. You can see where it says big lots. The light was on for that entire text, but on the iPhone it glows, but on the Pixel it is much more controlled. The next photo with the lights turned off looks a little bit better on the iPhone because the sky is clearer, so go figure. I think the night mode is the most inconsistent mode on all these phones. Here's another photo taken in almost pitch black. The Pixel is better. The iPhone is not bad, but if you look at that Pixel photo, it's got more detail. And here we have a zoomed in version of that photo, and I think Pixel is still a little bit more detailed than the iPhone. This is 3 times optical zoom. And going right back to the inconsistencies, in this photo, the iPhone is much better. The Pixel seems to have more noise. The iPhone seems to be more crisp and clear. So like I said, go figure. Now this photo was taken by the iPhone, and it's not as good as the one you're going to see on the Pixel. Here we have the Pixel version. It has more detail, it is more clear. In this photo, the iPhone seems to have the lights under control, but again, if you go back and look at these two photos, the Pixel has it under control. So like I said, with the night mode, heavy processing involved, so there really is not too much consistency. Both phones do an okay job to light up any subject in the dark. Personally, I never use the night mode, especially in very dark areas. And if I'm in normal areas, these days most phones take an okay picture in nighttime. I would still give the overall win to the Pixel because it does have more clarity in its pictures taken at nighttime when there's minimum light. Okay, so we have looked at a lot of photos, and it's really hard to pick a precise winner as both of these cameras are flagship material. Now, iPhone colors are a little more representative of real life colors when you take a photo or a video. Pixel photos and videos are slightly more saturated, but the quality of both photos are still amazing. iPhone is better for macro shots, while the Pixel is better for telephoto shots. iPhone has some cool features like the cinematic video mode, while the Pixel has the smooth panning mode that I personally like better. I think nighttime photos are slightly sharper on the Pixel, and I also think video performance and stabilization is actually slightly better on the iPhone. So the only way to make a decision would rest on you. You would have to pick what features appeal to you more, and boom, you make a decision. But either way, you are getting a flagship camera, but at least you pick the features more important for you. Any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them down below. Let me know. For now, guys, have a fantastic day, all right?